Welcome to the Hardwood Hustle, powered by PGC Basketball. We believe in the value of a coach. We're here to educate, empower, and encourage you to lead like never before. This week, we're joined by Coach C. White from Bentley University, a Division II program that has a history of success, including a national championship in 2014. She's been part of the program as a player and coach for over 20 years and has recently taken over, winning her own conference tournament championship last season. In this episode, we talk about leading all aspects of a program, including developing players and a championship culture. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Hardwood Hustle. Sam and Lisa with you today, and we're joined by a special guest, Coach C. White from Bentley University. Coach, we're excited to talk hoops with you today. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Sam. Thanks, Lisa. Psyched to be here.
Well, let's jump right in. And, you're at one of the top D2 programs in the country. You've been a part of it as a player, assistant, associate head coach, and now the last couple of years as the head coach. So maybe just talk to our audience for a minute, see about, what type of leader you are, how you run your program. I know you worked under a legendary coach and played for, so you got great training and mentorship, but why do you coach the way you coach and how you lead your program? Just maybe share with us your approach there.
Sure. Well, it's obviously an honor and a privilege to coach at Bentley. Coach Stevens, really prepared me for this experience and prepared me for this job. So being able to work under her and play for her and learn from her for the past 22 years, and then including being her point guard, has just been such a gift. Every single day learning from one of the all-time greatest. I couldn't be more blessed. So my leadership style is very similar to hers, but also very different. We're very different people. And I think that's why we worked so well together for so long as her assistant and associate head coach. I lead, I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about the game, obviously, but I'm extremely passionate about people and the people that I coach and the people that I work with. And I think that's what makes my job so much fun is the pure love that I have for my players, and obviously my staff. But I feel like I lead with love. I want what's best for these players as student athletes, and I think if you're coaching that way, I think they're going to believe in you. I think they're going to work hard for you. And I think they're going to be loyal, knowing that you truly have their best, their what you really, truly want what's best for them. And they believe you. So it's all about relationships, the bonds that you have with your players, the loyalty and the trust that you have in those relationships, every single one of them, all 15. And then I think you can get the most out of them and you can coach them the way that you need to.
Coach, I like what you said there about having to coach them the way you need to. And as coaches, I think we try to, sometimes we have to toe the line, which is how hard do we push them? How much do we put our arm around them and love them? And so what did you learn from Coach Stevens that gave you some good perspective and helped you find, your balance in that approach?
Sure. I think she taught me that it's all about building the relationships and the trust first. It's having a relationship that has nothing to do with basketball first. And that's crucial. I think that's really important for these players coming in. Some of them have been coached by screamers and yellers, and that's not really how we do things. Coach Stevens was not a big yeller. She was very soft-spoken. But once you had that relationship with her, you knew when, you got to get yourself in gear. You knew when she looked at you in that way, like, oh, geez, she's not happy right now. And when she did get upset with you, when she did give you that look, or she, tell you something through her teeth, it fired you up. You were psyched that you got yelled at that day in practice. You were psyched that she ripped you in that huddle because that's not how she led. She wasn't a screamer. So when she did get fired up, we certainly got fired up as well.
Well, see, I like what you said there in the opening about you lead with love. You tell your players that, which I think a lot of coaches want relationships and understand, number one, that's the right thing to do. Number two, that to help bring out the best in others, that, there's going to be challenge. So there has to be high level of challenge and high level of care. But then there's something little nuance you said, which is they have to believe you. It's one thing to say it and desire it, but another thing for your players to actually authentically and sincerely believe you. And I don't know that there's a magic pill or a secret trick to it. Maybe you have them, but how would you tell a coach listening that desires that to actually live it out and it become a fabric of who they are in their program?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great point. Kids are not stupid, right? They are very, very smart. Our players are a lot smarter than I am, and they see through BS. They see through it. They know someone who's really invested in their life and who isn't. They know someone who is putting their career ahead of their players. That it's all, they know when it's BS. They know when it's all about winning. And so you can't fool them. They watch everything. It's just like my own children. They're sponges. They soak it all up. They see it all. So they watch how you act, off the court, how you treat other people. They listen to conversations that you're having maybe about other people or other players. So they're not, they're not to be fooled. So you're either authentic and you truly, walk the walk and instead of just talk the talk, or you aren't. But your players won't be fooled by that. So I think the number one thing, it's very important to have those relationships, establish those relationships off the court with every single one of them. And I think sometimes the hardest ones to break down and to learn more about, those are the ones that need it the most.
Coach C, my question, I was thinking about how, what it takes to take over a program that's had so much success, won a national championship, tradition, like you said, just that the burden, like that the players have, that the pride that you said that, is in your program. And there's a little bit of pressure that comes with that, of sustaining success, of getting the right people in and out of your program, who don't transfer, who love it. And they're part of building something, not just, they're putting their own stamp on it. And so I would just love to hear it, like, you're putting your own stamp on the program too. And so how do you, through your leadership, how do you approach coaching under that pressure and leading with that in mind? Do you put it aside and just go take care of today, or do you always want to keep that in mind as you are leading your program?
Yeah, you said it, Lisa. It's some big shoes to fill, some great traditions to keep, and at the same time you're putting your own stamp on it, but you don't want to change what doesn't need, what's not broken, right? So I think the biggest thing, and the pressure is real and it's there, and I think our players feel it as well. I think the reason that I knew this was me, it was definitely my job to take. And it was my burden to carry, so to speak. It's a lot of weight. It's a very heavy hold, but I felt I was the right person for the job because I wanted to take that weight off of the players. I don't want them to feel, to be afraid to lose or to not be the one team that doesn't go to the NCAAs, or, I just wanted to carry that weight for them because I know as a player that, you're under a microscope and your job is to win. If you play for Bentley women's basketball, your job is to win. So I hope I do a pretty good job of relieving the pressure from them, but I know it's there. But I'm willing every day to take that on so that they have less to carry. But I think part of that is, they chose us for a reason. And, that's why we're getting such high level student athletes, is they understand the tradition and what it means to wear Bentley on their chest. And they wholeheartedly agreed to carry some of that burden. And that's why they chose us, because they want to play on a national stage and they want, to carry on that tradition.
When we're talking about pressure, I like what you said, take some of the burden off their shoulders, but it also sounds like there's an acknowledged, accepted, when I go to Bentley, there's an expectation to go perform, to go win. And so they're going to carry some of that burden. Where do you, as a coach, how do you speak to them on a daily, weekly basis, a yearly basis about, I was just having this conversation with a group of players yesterday. Like, there's a pressure to go give your max effort, to be a great teammate, to not to make a shot, like that's going to happen or it's not. So I was trying to get my players to focus on, there is a pressure, but let's put the pressure on the right things, as opposed to where a lot of players, they're thinking about offensive, like got to score. So turn it back to you. How are you articulating that and communicating that to your players?
Yeah, that takes time. It takes time to make sure that our freshmen understand how we act, how we treat people. And they have to see that that starts at the top. I think when you take care of the little things, they don't become big things. And I think little things are big deals. So the way we carry ourselves when we enter a gym, the way we walk into a facility, the way we are on the bus, the way we treat the bus driver, the way we treat the hotel staff when we are on a business trip, the way we treat the people in our facilities of our gym that clean our building, the way we treat our professors, the people that work in Sodexo that feed them. I think it's all aspects of life that they need to be their best selves. And I think for the young kids, they see 14 other people doing it and acting this way, and it starts to like, oh, this is how we act. This is what we do here. We are set and held to a different standard, and that's in everything we do every day. Whether you're on campus, whether you're in a uniform, whether you're in Boston on a Saturday night, you are carrying on a tradition, and you are looked at differently than some of our other student athletes on campus, and you signed up for it. So, we feel that you have to be your best self all the time. And is that exhausting? Maybe, but that's why we feel that we're able to carry the torch for those who came before us, and to never put, a bad light on the name.
Yeah, there's something to be said for not shying away from the challenge of it. It's hard, but that's makes us better. It's setting you up for success beyond basketball and in basketball and all those things. I really love what you're sharing with the coaches on this podcast, just because that perspective, like even what Sam said, putting the pressure in the right spots, because the program as a whole is so much on the court and off the court, and it all goes together. And so I was just thinking about how do you, when you start, probably I would assume you're a leader who starts with yourself. How do I model this to my players? But what do you do and maybe you've seen this through the years, when you don't have a ton of leadership in your players, and you're like, where's the one, or where's the two, and who can I count on? How do you, develop leaders in your program when you're really not seeing it yet? Maybe they're young, or maybe they're immature. I know a lot of coaches out there struggle with saying, I don't have any leaders. What would you say to those coaches? How would you help them?
Sure. I think it takes time, right? You've got time to build leadership. So you come in as a freshman, and you're not a leader yet. You've got those personalities that okay, that this kid might be a great leader in time, or this kid's a good leader in her class, and in time will lead this team. And then you've got different kind of leaders or players that need to be sort of taught how to lead. I think we've always had some really, really great captains. And on top of that, it's not about having the captainship at Bentley. It's about knowing your role and helping lead in any way you can. And everybody can lead in their own way. We've had phenomenal leaders, and we've had phenomenal captain leaders that have never played a minute of basketball for us. Some of our all-time best have been recruited walk-ons that never took the court. And those names we'll talk about every day when we talk about leadership. We'll talk about those names as if they were the Lauren Batistas of the world that won a national championship and were 35-0. And that's how important their role was to this program. But yes, I think it's important that you build strong leaders, and they're not all going to lead the way you lead. Not everyone's going to have your personality or the ability to grab someone by the jersey. And, so you have to figure out how to help them lead on and off the court. And maybe it just means more meetings. And I've found that I've needed to step into roles that I don't typically need to step into, depending on the type of leader they are. So we have a senior captain, a fifth year, who is quiet and very, very nice, and everyone loves her. And I think it would be hard for her to not be liked. And I think she realizes, that's one thing that she's got to be okay with. So maybe I need to be, the one that they don't like. Maybe I need to be the bad cop. And I have no problem with that. Whereas years in the past, we've had such tough leaders that will tell you like it is, right to your face, right away, that I don't have to step in at all. So, you need to morph how you lead because of your leaders in order to make it what you want.
So when I hear you say that, I hear, these are my words, read the room. You're reading the room to see who your players are, what personalities exist in the room, and then, let them step into their own personality and be the best that they can be. Lisa's got to be the best Lisa. Sam needs to be the best Sam. C needs to be, and so I think that's an EQ thing for you as a coach. So I celebrate that about you. I guess my question, I love asking this question to coaches. We've all heard this. Player-led teams are better than coach-led teams. And coaches will walk in a locker room and say it at halftime, or they'll say it after they're frustrated after a loss and they don't think players are leading. And then they kick a trash can or they throw a chair and then they walk out and they expect the players to lead. My thought is, well, of course we want our players to lead, but how do we teach players to move from a coach-led team to a player-led team and not just say something and expect it? So my question is, how do you turn your team over the course of a season from where maybe in October and November and December, you are leading pretty strongly, but you're gradually passing the mic and passing on the leadership to your players? And I don't even want to assume that that's what you do, but if you do that, maybe you can just speak a little bit to your thoughts on that and how that happens. Or you may say, nope, I just run it and I just make it happen.
Yeah, no, you're hitting it on the head there. That's exactly how you hope it works, that you're leading and then they're taking that, they're leading the way you want them to lead. And it is a player run. That locker room is run by your leaders that understand it, that get it, that have been there 3, 4, some 5 years. And really what they say goes in there because they know, they're the ones on the floor having to make these decisions where we can't help them. And so if you have the right people in the right roles that you trust, what they're saying is going to be heard, respected, and then turned into action. So, I like listening into that, what they're talking about in the locker room when we're out waiting to go in before the half. They're making adjustments. They're understanding that, the coaches can't be in our huddle on the court, and we need to make adjustments on the fly, and we need to communicate and be extremely clear with what we need from one another on the court because it's in our hands now. So when I hear those conversations, they know full well that, we're turning the ball over and we're missing blockouts. And that's why we're in a tie game right here. And that's the best thing is that after the game, sometimes when things don't go well and you win ugly, or maybe you actually don't get lucky enough to win ugly, and you lose, what they're saying in the locker room is always spot on. They're no fools. They understand what was expected. They absolutely knew the game plan, and sometimes they execute and sometimes they don't. And if that was on me and I did not properly prepare them, then I'll tell them that's on me. That one was on me, because I know these kids, they want it so bad and they're willing to do the work and put in the work. And I think we are pretty honest with one another. And I think our upperclassmen can look in the mirror and say, that one was on me, or my bad. That one, I got that one, and it won't happen again. And we talk every single day before every game of what you can bring to the table today. And that just might be, I'm going to give you extra shots and warm-ups, or I'm going to bring the energy on the bench. But every one of them has to think about what can they bring that day for us to be at our best. And, when 15 people can be holding each other accountable, including the staff, you're going to have more success than failures.
So I got a quick follow up on that, and I'm glad you're hitting on this, because what I'm hearing is two things: high level of accountability at Bentley, and I'm hearing an ownership mindset, not a point fingers but point thumbs. But can you give me, Lisa, everybody listening, like what are tangible ways, if I'm in an elevator with you for 60 seconds, give me ways I can coach my players into being owners of problems, and that we have accountability. Maybe that's not a 60-second spiel, but if you could, I'd love to hear it.
All right. Well, I'll give you one little tip and technique that I'm sure a lot of you guys do, but sometimes you don't realize you're doing it. And I think creating adversity for your players throughout the season is a great way to see how they're going to react, and then program them to react the way that you want them to react in time. Creating adversity could be as simple as, you're not making calls when they're scrimmaging, and you're not seeing the foul. I don't see what you're talking about, and just don't ever call the foul. It's that, the white team's beating the blue team by 10, and all of a sudden I wipe the score clear and it's 50-50 and there's 1 minute left in the game. And these are competitive, driven, fiery kids, and they want to win in everything they do. So when you wipe the score and they earn themselves a 10-point lead, they are PO'd. And I love it because I know how they feel, because I feel the same way. But it could also be that all of a sudden, our senior captain's practice jersey isn't in her locker before the game, and it's a pregame shoot around and she doesn't have her jersey. Ooh, how are they going to act? How are they going to react? What's going to happen? That creating adversity and then figuring out how to deal with it the way that you want them throughout the entire year. Because it's going to come. Things are going to happen. The bus is going to break down. Someone got broken up with before a game. These two are fighting. That's going to happen, and that's how you react to it. So I think the more that you can push your players, and then know how far you can push them to, just sort of shape them the way that you want to shape them, toughen them up a little bit, having them figure out solutions on their own to get each other through hard times is going to help you in March.
Yeah, Coach C, when you're talking about creating adversity and you're seeing your players go through some things, how do you call it like it is? Do you say, hey, this is what you're going, and kind of really verbalize to the group, to the player, the mental side of, man, you're missing shots, you're lacking confidence, maybe you're struggling to, players who are trying to always get it right and trying not to fail instead of feeling free. Do you put it out there and be open about it, maybe on the practice floor or in a conversation, or do you just try to keep the focus on what's in front of them and only talk about the response? I just was curious if you've thought about, oh man, I don't want to touch on that because I don't want to give it, credence, or do I want to, put it out there so we're all on the same page and we're recognizing this is what it is, this is what we're dealing with, and everybody's going to have the mental side of it is just so important. So I was curious how you navigate that.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's knowing your players right off the bat, right? So when you have a freshman that comes in, my biggest thing with our incoming kids and all of our players, I will not embarrass them. I promise them that I'm not going to embarrass them. It's a respect thing. I'm not calling you out. I'm not going to lose my mind when we miss a layup or you turn the ball over and just state the obvious. I think that's very selfish of coaches. They can't help themselves. But why are we stating you think the kid meant to turn the ball over? Do you really think she meant to miss the layup that would have put you up 2, right? There's no need to put my hands on my head and stomp my foot and embarrass a player when it's just not necessary and it doesn't help. But I very much will hold my upperclassmen accountable to things that maybe I'm seeing my freshmen do. Now, instead of yelling at my incoming freshmen in practice or constructively criticizing them, I would talk about the bad shot that my senior point guard took. And so instead of saying, this freshman, that's a really bad shot, I'll tell her one-on-one, but I'm not going to announce it to the whole team early in her career. But when my senior or my junior does it, I'll announce that to the whole gym. I want the whole gym to know that I'm holding you accountable for your actions because that wasn't good enough. That's not what we want. And it all of a sudden is very clear what you want, what a good shot is, what a good pass is. And I know the players that can take that, and they know exactly what I'm doing and why. And they get it. But it takes time. And then, our freshmen, they figure that out real quick. And then in time, I'm able to have very honest, blunt conversations with them in front of everyone else because they get it.
That's really good stuff. Really good stuff. And I think that you're right. So many coaches make it about themselves, because I was talking with a college coach this morning. We were talking about this, how coaches want, when teams make mistakes, the coach has very dramatic, theatrical reactions. And it's like they want everybody to know that those players, they messed up. They didn't do what I told them to do. It's not me, right? And so it's just a very coach-centric approach. So I love how I think John Wooden said, whisper criticism and shout praise. And that's important. Now, on that note, and maybe you spoke this a minute ago, let me hear it another way. It's like, if you have a leader or a player on your team making consistent mistakes, maybe they're breaking or causing cracks in your culture, and you're trying to handle it privately, but your other teammate, the other players don't know that. Sometimes other players need to see the coach correct the player in front of the team, or you might have those other players getting upset with the coach. I think you're following where I'm going with that. Like, where do you find the balance between the private one-on-one or addressing it in front of the team when needed?
Sure. We all have those players that really want to watch film one-on-one with you before we watch it with the team. They always want to get, things, they know the turnover, they know the bad shot that's coming. They want to watch it with you one-on-one, even though you're going to watch it that day with the team, because they want that to be one-on-one conversation. I'm still going to call that out in the team room, because those are the players that can take it. The players that I know can handle the same as when I get on them at practice. I'm getting on you in particular because I know it's going to help the whole team. We always say film never lies, and we watch it together so we can all learn from that same mistake. You've got to hold people accountable, including yourself. Hey, listen, that was a bad call. I made a very bad decision. A shooter came in and we went 22-2. And why were we in zone? That's a bad decision I made. And those 3 points, that's on me. That's on me. That you've got to be accountable for your actions the way that you want them to be accountable for theirs. So you got to call it out, and you got to be real with them, because they all know in the room who you're treating with kid gloves and who you aren't. So I think it's very important to address it. And as long as you're consistent with everybody, you give the freshmen a couple of, lookaways early, and then they're right on board, and, they're not freshmen anymore. They're just like everybody else in the program. But I think that's really, really important to be honest and upfront and consistent with it. And I think it's also very, very important to show them what you want on film, not what you don't want. So I know it takes an extra half hour out of your day to clip the good, but when you see those hustle plays and you see that charge and you see that deflection in the tip, or what you emphasize, your non-negotiables, when you see that on film, you better show them. Because if you want more results, if you want more actions like that, you've got to show them what you want. And it's time consuming, but it works. Don't just show them the bad. Show them what you want more of, and you'll get it.
Definitely. That's such a good reminder for all of us, because it's a long journey this season. It's, for players, and sometimes we feel like it's just about today, and I have to, get better, this crazy sense of urgency that we have, but it's playing the long game because they need to see the good and they need to stay, encouraged. And I think, visualize, because what you show gets played in their mind over and over again. So why not play those good clips over and over again? I tell, shooters, I think the best way to forget about the last miss is to visualize the next make, so I just love that and what you're sharing. And so I would like to, I know we're getting close to the end. You talked about being a point guard, and I think all of us have experienced having a point guard, not having a point guard. How do we help our point guards? Just, are they facilitators? Are they scorers? We want them to be aggressive. They shoulder a lot of burden of trying to be a coach on the floor a lot. And just talking about your leadership development before we got on this. So how do you help your point guards on the court in terms of, running the offense and what it's been your experience?
That's great. I'm glad you asked that, because this is a very important. It's a very important relationship that you have to have with your point guard. And we laugh every single day at Bentley because the joke is no one wants to be a Bentley point guard. Like, no, let me be a 2 guard and just shoot my shot and just stand here and you get me the ball and have zero response. Like, we joke and we laugh. And I have 2 point guards on the team in particular that we joke about this every day, because it's always your fault. Right? You hit it right in the hands and it right through her hands, right off her nose. Well, that's your fault. You got to figure it out. You should have known she wasn't going to catch that pass. Everything is the point guard's fault and responsibility. So I try to lighten the load as much as I can, because I lived it. I know. And I loved subbing in when I was a freshman as the 2 and letting Prefecto run the point and take all the burden. I could just get breakaway layups. I didn't have to do anything. I just love being a 2 guard. But I'll be honest, as soon as I really matured a bit, being a point guard for Bentley is just a special role. So what do you got to do to help your point guard? You got to lessen the load. You got to constantly be helping them and constantly in their ear. And every single minute of practice and drills, I am constantly harping on them. I shut their, what's the time and score? How many fouls do we have to give? What's the score? How much are you up? What would you do here? Can you get a 2 for 1 here or not? It's constant. And then in the game, I'm constantly whispering, hey, keep this play and this play in your pocket. They have so much going on in their brain that every time they take the floor, just give them 1 or 2 things to keep in their pocket for, hey, a good blob against these guys because they're switching is this one. Hey, when in doubt, go to, this play. Keep that in your pocket because that's going to help us right here. You just constantly telling them and giving them tips and techniques. So when they take the court, the last thing they're hearing is, okay, I got to run, 55 here. This is a good play. So they don't have to constantly be thinking the game. You got to help them think the game. And the relationship with your point guard has to be very, very close. They have to know what you want when you don't have a timeout. They have to know exactly what they're going to run when, you need a 3. They know what your 2 for 1 is when there's 47 seconds on the clock. They know. They don't even have to look at you, and then you start trusting that they're going to make the right calls in the huddle. And if they make the wrong call, it was still the right call because your point guard made it. So you build them up. And it takes a lot of work to have that relationship. And you're hoping that your point guard is the one that wants to watch film with you 24/7 and that asks for more. And thankfully, that relationship that you build with them is the reason they're extremely successful and they can handle the burden of running the show.
That's good. See, and I think I want to highlight something just to make sure coaches and players that are listening heard it, which is I heard the word constantly, you're on them. And it could be almost overwhelming, but you're trying to get them to think like the coach. And the only way to do that is to think like the coach. You got to get them thinking like you're thinking. And early on, I imagine, like you said, as a freshman, it is overwhelming. They might not play as good on court because their head's spinning and we say, like TJ says, like slow meat, slow feet. So they're not playing instinctive, but you're trying to prepare them as the season goes on, as their career goes on. And it's like a quarterback in football. They have to process more information than any other position. So it's the burden of the leader. And so I just think that's really good. Well, let me ask one final question. and then we'll wrap up. You mentioned adversity earlier, and every team experiences adversity. I would say the difference is the bad teams let adversity fracture even more. That crack in the windshield gets bigger and bigger, whereas the good teams, they go in and they go to the repair shop and fix it, and they work through the adversity well. And bad teams or bad cultures don't. So the culture that you all have built, how do y'all handle adversity? Why do y'all handle it well? Maybe just talk about that.
Sure. I think to not let the windshield, completely shatter and the crack completely expand, I think it truly just comes down to confidence. And I think that's the hardest thing. These coaches always, how do you build up the confidence? How do you get more confident players? Confidence, confidence, confidence. That's what we deal with all the time. And I think it's a really hard thing to have, 10 to 15 players that are confident in themselves and their abilities every time they take the floor. You know that you have one or two players that actually want the ball with 5 seconds to go in a tie game. So how do you make there be more than one or two players on the floor, be that confident and be able to be their best selves? It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of individual work from them. And I think when they start to understand I am responsible for my own confidence and no one can take it from me. I think in general, women in general, we all need to work at this and we all need more. We do a lot of mental skills training and it's helping us. We do a lot of affirmations daily and it's helping us, and we have to keep up with it. But you also need to get your butt in the gym and shoot. You also need to get your butt in the gym and do it every single day. That when, there is no time on the clock and you got the ball at the free throw line, you've done this 100 times a day, every single day. And that's the only way you're going to be like, give me the ball, I got this. So I think taking responsibility of ourselves and our own confidence is crucial. And it's our job as coaches to mentor and build that. So when things aren't going well, it's tough sometimes because you want to slam them, but you got to know when you got to fire them up and slam them. And then you got to get back to building them back up, because it's a quick thing that can be destroyed. It takes a lot of time to build, but it can very quickly be destroyed. So you got to constantly be building them up.
Well said, Coach. You've dropped a lot of nuggets for us and our audience. We appreciate you. We thank you. We wish you the best this season. Before we exit out, what are some ways coaches or leaders, people listening, can find you? Email, social media, anything like that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm probably the only person in the world that doesn't have social media. Nothing. I have nothing. So my players take over our Twitter and our Insta, and I don't even have old school Facebook. None. So you can email me and you can call me, and I'll give you my cell phone. But yeah, you won't find me on social media. So it's just not what I do. But yeah, email cwhite@bentley.edu. It's right online. My work line is right online, and I'll give you my cell phone as soon as you email me or call me. And Lisa, I did have one more tip for you, because we were talking point guard, and this has helped us. So we like to, in the preseason and the postseason, when it's not that heavy grind of game prep, game scout, game prep, we bring those point guards and two guards in, and we watch other teams' end games. So we'll clip on Synergy end game situations. Here's a tight one between, I don't care who it is. It could be any teams, any level. And we watch how they ended the game. And so I make the point guard say, what would you do in this situation? What would I want in this situation? So they know full well from the way that these two teams, and there's no pressure, it's not us. They're not watching themselves. They're watching other people. And they're now understanding, okay, right here, okay, now we've got a lead. Would we foul? Would we not? So that I've found has been really successful for us, is watching other end game situations that are close games with our point guards especially, but our two guards as well, so that they really truly understand your philosophy, what you would do in that situation. And then you're hearing from them what they should do or what they would do. And you're having great conversations, no pressure. It's not them out there.
Yeah, I love that because it's so nuanced. And like the answer is always, it depends. And so how do they get that? It's that knowledge because it's not going to be black and white. Well, you go through situation after situation and you just get a really good feel for it. And then you make the call. Like you said, they're not wrong. You make the call,
Right.
And put everything into that decision. So yeah, really good tip there. Thank you.
Coach C. White, we appreciate you. We wish you the best. And that is Lisa. I am Sam, and we are the Hardwood Hustle.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Hardwood Hustle, where we believe in the value of a coach. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Hardwood_Hustle to stay up to date on the latest episodes and share your thoughts with our coaching community. From the Hardwood Hustle team, thanks again. We can't wait to be with you again next week.